Hi friends, it's Unicorn, and today I want to make a video that I've never tried before, but I've seen it on BookTube for a very long time. It's the Try a Chapter tag, where you basically got a bunch of books that you want to read, but you didn't know where to start, so you read the first chapter of each of them and to decide which one you want to go first. And I want to make this video in two different ways. First of all, I want to make a Women's Prize for Fiction edition, so I borrowed all these books on the Women's Prize longlist that my library has and also are available. Some of the books on Women's Prize for Fiction have not been published in the United States yet. Some other ones people are already borrowing them, so these ones are the ones that I can find are available. The second one is I want to film this video in the different little spots in my current apartment because I keep saying that I'm moving very soon, as like within a week I need to start packing tomorrow, so the apartment will no longer stay the same after tomorrow. So I want to film a little bit footage in each of the corners that I liked. I have a very tiny apartment that I shared with my partner, and there are not many corners to film, to be honest, but I just want to keep the memories of this apartment. And we lived here for 4.5 years. We're also moving to another apartment. It's just a local move and it's a little bit bigger place, but I'm gonna miss this apartment, although I'm also looking forward to the new apartment as well. So in terms of these books, I didn't really know about a lot of them, but I do have some that I have seen people talking about and people seems to really love them. The first one is Great Circle. This book was everywhere last year, and I have some friends have already read it and they really loved it, so that's why I'm very intrigued and looking forward to this book. And also, this one is a book about a fictional musician. I'm not very good about reading about musicians, and I just read a musician books last month and I didn't quite resonate with it. But this story is kind of very groundbreaking that I heard, so I'm looking for this one as well. And the third one that I know a little bit is The Island of Missing Trees. This one I seen it in Simon's channel on Savage Reads. I think it's one of his new favorites, and he made a whole entire review of it. So I'm really interested in this book as well. And then there is Remote Sympathy. This is a book that I have not heard before I see the long list of Women's Prize for Fiction, but I really love the cover. A good design of cover got me every time, and I'm not ashamed of it. Another popular one is the Book of Form and Emptiness. I don't know what the story is about. I kind of get it is a coming-of-age story about a 13-year-old boy, but I'm not sure, so we'll see. And another one on this list that intrigued me is this Build Your House Around My Body. This is about two disappearances of young women. One is in 1986 and the other one is 2011. The first one is a Vietnamese girl went missing, and the second one is a Vietnamese American girl in Saigon also went missing but left a trace. And somehow their stories intertwine each other, and this is another one that I'm really interested in. And the rest of three books, I'm sorry to say that I don't really know, but I'm eager to read and find out. I also peeked into the first chapter of some of these books. Some of them only have like 1-2 page of first chapter. Some of them's first chapter is like 40 pages. So I think my plan is if the first chapter of a book is only like 1-2 pages, I'll just keep reading a little bit more to get a feeling of the story. And if the book's first chapter is super long, I'll just stop at about like 20-25 pages. So yeah, that's the plan, and now I'm going to get to reading and report back to you in different spots of my apartment. And there's I finished the first chapter of two books. The first one is the Book of Form and Emptiness by Ruth Ozaki. This is the book I'm talking about where technically the first chapter is only 2 pages. It's a letter to the main character, so I kept on reading until the end of the actual Chapter 1, and this is a very interesting book. I was immediately grasped by the story. It's talking about a boy where his dad died from a traffic accident and his mom is actually witnessed the whole thing. And the story started from the funeral of his dad, and he heard some voice in the funeral that is actually her father's voice, so he didn't really know what it is about. And also him and his mother are still trying to figure out and trying to make peace with the death of the father in the family. And I feel like the story of his mom is actually very interesting because she refused to tell everybody that they have any families and relatives. That keeps me very interested. I also read the blurb. The blurb, actually the story starts from 1 year after the funeral, and the boy is definitely hearing some voices of his father's. So this one is kind of a very surreal story, and I just really want to know the story of his mom actually, so I think this one I'm gonna keep reading. And the second book I read is Sorrow and Bliss by Meg Mason. This is a story that is very contemporary. It starts with the problem that one marriage has. Protagonist and her husband. They've married for quite some time, and the protagonist, I believe, is 40 or 50. And they went to a celebration party for her birthday, but it's actually planned by her husband because she just like, they're not in a very good relationship. Her husband was complaining about she was able to be friendly to her sister, but not to him. And then I read the blurb about the story. I think the husband left her. It's not a spoiler. It's supposed to be happen very, very soon. It's just not in the first chapter. And with that being said, this book didn't interest me that much. I just feel like the story is kind of I've seen stories like those before where like there's trouble in the marriage and people just left each other and they want to find meanings of life and that kind of thing. Maybe I'm wrong, but yeah, it didn't get me, so I'm gonna put it down and return it to the library. Hi, I finished another 2 books of their first chapter. The first one is Creatures of Passage by Murawa Yahida. This is another book that has some supernatural elements in it. It's a story set in Washington in 1977, around that time. It's where America has been founded for 200 years. There's a taxi driver. She's dealing with the grief of the passing of her brother, and one day she was drunk and drinking and thinking about all the things in her life. And also in the city, her great nephew knocked on her door and things started to happen from there. I think I'm gonna pass on this one, although the story is kind of interesting because how her brother passed away is by drowning, and her grandnephew actually saw or heard something in the river, so he went into trouble because he was saying that in the school. So his mom sent him to the protagonist. But I think the writing style is not for me at this moment. It jumps quite often. When she was drinking and thinking about her life, the narrator also talking about the development of Washington DC as a city. It's just like a combining story of her story and the city's story, and I think it's gonna continue that way, but it doesn't really resonate with me a lot, so I'm gonna pass on this one. And then I read the first chapter of Remote Sympathy. I'll hold the book here so you can see my cat. And this is by Catherine Chetji. This is a book that's set in World War II. I'm gonna put this book on the maybe pile just to see after I finish all the 8 or books that I borrowed. If there's a lot I want to read, I'll just pass this on. If there aren't a lot that I want to read, I'll just keep reading this one. It's set in World War II, and the first chapter is a letter that Dr. Weber wrote to his children, talking basically about how he met their mom back in the days. It's written after the Second World War. And I don't think the first chapter actually went into the main story because the main story is talking about the relationship of their family and a camp near them or like a prison near them and during the Second World War. So I suppose there is a lot of tension between their relationship and friendships. And also Dr. Weber invented some machine to kill cancer, but none of them was mentioned. It was just Dr. Weber talking about how fascinated he found about electricity and the use of them and how he met their mom. So like I said, I'm like in between of, oh, should I keep reading it or should I put it down for now? But I think this is a story that was great potential that I'm gonna like, so this will be a maybe pal story. Hey guys, welcome to my kitchen. I have terrible lighting here because they're all behind me, but I just want to show off my magnets on my fridge. And also I finished the chapter of 2 new books. The first one I finished is The Paper Palace by Miranda Crowley Heller. This is a book that is actually very interesting in writing. There are 2 timelines in this novel. The first one takes place in 24 hours. The other one takes place in many decades actually, and the first chapter already have the two timelines intertwined and telling us the story of the protagonist. The 24 hours one is where she went to swim in a lake, and the decades one just started. It seems like she was trying to figure out something in her life, but at this point I want to put down this book just for a little bit. I think this book has a lot of potential to be a very interesting story, but it didn't grab me by the first chapter, and that's the whole purpose for this trial chapter tag, right? So I'm gonna put down this one and talk about the other one I want to read. The second one I read and I want to continue reading is The Island of Missing Trees by Aleph Shafak. This is the most anticipated novel on this long list because I was sold after I watched the review for this book, and it was really intriguing. It's talking about a girl named Ada and talking about her life, and she still didn't understand her father's love for plants. Apparently her life was also heavily influenced by plants, and the most important thing that makes me want to continue reading is the first chapter finished on a cliffhanger. I think it's the most important element in Try a Chapter tag because some of the other books you can tell that they may be a slow burner or something, but this one just like you have to figure out what's happening because it was quite shocking apparently. Hi friends, I'm currently in my study. It's shared by my partner who's sitting over there, and I finished another two chapters of two books. The first one is Final Revival of Opal and Nev by Donnie Walton. This is a book that is written in a kind of an interview form, and the first chapter is like interview of the two characters, and then following is a editor's note. I got quite confused by the format of the story, so I read the first chapter where the interview, I suppose, takes place, and also I read the editor's notes after that. Because it's the beginning, it's just talking about how they grew up and what's their family is alike, and the editor's notes is basically saying that they're very charming musicians. And because the paragraph is really short, like the narratives switched quite often, so I feel like actually this book would be very good if you're listening to it as an audiobook. So I think I'm gonna put the physical copy of this book down and pick up the audiobook from my library and listen to this book when I get to borrow it. However, the second book I read I want to keep reading is Build Your House Around My Body by Violet Cooper-Smith. This is a book talking about two disappearances of two young women. This is a book that I'm already interested in before I go into it, and like I said, it's about two disappearances in Saigon of two different young women across the time of like more than 2 decades. And the first chapter is quite short, so I actually read the first 2 chapters and it's only like 14 pages for the first 2 chapters. They both deal with the disappearance of the more recent young woman who is a Vietnamese American in Saigon, and it's just talking about how she disappears and how the people around her didn't realize that at first, and also how she left some belongings after her, and now we're just like trying to figure out why she disappeared and why and where did she go. I think it's a very intriguing story, and also I like the setting, and I'm just eager to find out the little mystery elements behind the whole thing and want to see what's the disappearance of the first girl in this novel would be like. So yeah, I think I just can't resist a little bit mystery stories and set in a very culture-rich land. So yeah, I think I'm gonna keep reading it. And now I only have one book left, which is Great Circle. So see you later. Friends, I'm back at my usual spot. It's actually the entryway of this apartment, and I have a problem. I read the first chapter of Great Circle by Maggie Shipstead, and actually the first 2 chapters, because the first chapter is again only 1 or 2 pages long, so I read the second one and I really liked it. I think the writing is especially very smooth, and the story was centered around 2 characters. The first one is a fictionalized female pilot back in the 1950s who's called, oh my god, I forgot her name. Marianne Graves, and the other one is a actress who's playing Marianne Graves after like 50 years. And the first chapter is about Marianne Graves and how she's talking about her love for fly in the sky and planes. And the second chapter is written by the narratives of the actress who's called Hadley Bixert, and she's talking about how she came to know Marianne Graves when she was a little girl, and a quickly run through of her life stories, and we settled down on the filming scene where she's playing Marianne Graves after 50 years of the disappearance of Marianne Graves. And I don't know, before I started to read this book, I thought it's gonna be a slow burner, and I was like, oh, slow burner is not good for child chapter attack, but it's actually not. Things happened very quickly in the story, and it already got a lot of my attention. But here's my problem. This is the fourth book I'm already said I'm interested in continue reading. So I think we might pick too much from this list, but it also makes sense because Women's Prize for Fiction is one of my favorite fictional prizes. So usually I like a lot of books on the long list anyway, but yeah, we picked four. We have Great Circle here, and we have Build Your House Around My Body, and also we have The Island of Missing Trees, and the fourth one is the first one I read. It's The Book of Form and Emptiness. And we also have this Remote Sympathy on the watch list. I don't think I'm gonna get to it because I already have four books that I'm for sure I want to continue reading, so this one needs to wait for a little bit. But I'm really happy how this tag video went. I don't know if I need to say more about each book after I reading them. I don't know. It's the first time I do try a chapter text, and also I don't want to spoil the story, so I'm just talking about the very basic things of each first chapters, and also I don't want to know much more about these books anyway because I don't want to spoil myself, so I didn't look up a lot of things. But I think 4 books out of 9 is a good number. We have a little bit of reading to do after this, and I'll return the other 5 books to the library so some other people can borrow it. And yeah, I think that's it for this video. I had fun making them, and I had fun showing you my little other spots in my apartment, although some of those are like they're all featured in some of my vlogs. But I hope you like this video, and don't forget to say hi in the comment section down below. And also please tell me if there are any books that you are interested in the long list of Women's Prize for Fiction. How about in the long list or short list of other literary prizes, because we're in the literary prizes season. I wish you happy reading, stay healthy, stay safe. I'll see you in my next Bookish video. Bye!